All right, Brian.
Hi.
First episode of the Peak Pros podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's COVID-19, social distancing. We're like family, though. I mean, I think that we can cut the
We're
6
like
feet away a little bit,
4 feet, but we've got Purell and wipes.
just
so
in case.
That should be good.
And I think that'll cover us for the next 20 minutes or so. But yeah, we wanted to share with all of you what we do here at Peak and kind of get more involved with the community and talk a little bit about the business. So yeah, I'm Mia. I'm the personal trainer here at Peak Performance. And
I'm Brian. Brian Tenenhaus started this business about 4 years ago. And the business school that I never went to open up my own PT practice never told me in a million years how to prepare for COVID-19 or whatever this is that's going on. So yeah, so here we are, and we've got a little extra time on our hands, and Mia said, let's do this podcast. I was like, you know what, that sounds like a kind of cool idea. Why are we doing this again?
yeah, well, obviously it's the coolest thing to do lately. But besides that, yeah, I know that a lot of people get information these days through podcasts. And
Right.
so that's one way to just really reach the community. And, you know, if you're like on a long car ride, instead of just listening to music, you can learn some more information about that. So yeah.
All right. Well, this is going to be cool. I'm excited. I think to start out with, we should sort of introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about who we are and how we got here. So
Yeah.
You take the podium.
Sure.
How'd you get here?
I got here about 6 months ago.
Okay.
But before that, I was a high school PE teacher. I wanted to explore different routes just besides PE, kind of advance my career a little bit. And I was always interested in training. So I used to belong to different gyms, belong to the Y. I really enjoyed working out and working with people. But I also wanted to just explore like the one-on-one sessions. So I'm used to teaching like group training or like the group exercise through physical education, but it was so cool to explore that route. So I got my ACSM certification. I worked full-time at the YMCA as a personal trainer and just fell in love with it, even more so than teaching. And just moving back to my hometown, I was looking at different career opportunities and came across Peak, and it seemed like the right fit. And just happy to be here, and it's been 6 months.
Yeah. So we're thrilled to have her. We definitely lucked out. We've had a few people in the past, and they were pretty good, but we've definitely been really blessed to get Mia here. And now we just got to get through the next few months of this craziness, and we'll be picking up right where we left off. So talk to me a little bit more about some of the programs that you've started here and some of the things that we've been running with here.
Sure. So a couple things. I work with individual clients. Since this is a physical therapy clinic as well, we share a lot of the clients and patients, and we've worked like really closely together too. So, sometimes they come in with like an ACL injury or like a rotator cuff injury. Once they progress through all of their treatments with Brian will send them along to me, and I'll help them with exercise, get them back to some of their pre-op activities that they'd like to do, whether that's running, whether that's tennis, whether, getting back to a team sport. But yeah, we work with clients and patients of all ages and all abilities and different programs. But yeah, besides individual training, we do some group classes. We do some kids classes here. One of the bright spots of our day is teaching the ninja classes. We'll have to show you guys our space in a little bit, but we have rings, we have a rock wall here, we have a pegboard, we have a turf. So we utilize all this really cool equipment in our ninja classes and with our patients and clients. But besides that, we do sports specific training here. I'm working with like a running group right now, a youth running group. We work with triathletes. We do all sorts of types of programs. And Brian, why don't you talk a little bit about what you do here at Peak as well? And how you also, became involved with physical therapy.
Yeah. So, well, to start out with, my story is, I was in the PT profession for, probably 7 to 10 years, somewhere around there, where I took my first manual physical therapy class. And, people asked, do you do manual PT? And I was like, yeah, I do some manual PT. And then I started to go more and more courses and realized what I was doing was manual, but it was 10% of my session. I used to work in kind of the rat race environment where you Sometimes I would see 15 to 20 people in a 7.5 hour workday. So I would try to get my hands on everybody. I would try to have good conversations with everybody. But the truth is, there's only so much you can do. So I was doing I felt like a band director. I was like, you're going to do over there, you want to do your straight leg raises? And I would be working on someone's knee, maybe an incision over the knee where they had a knee replacement. And then I'd say, and make sure you remember, here, a little higher on the bike, try to get your speed up. So I was just doing so much. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, we had a fun time there. It was a really enjoyable environment. I love the therapists that I worked with and the patients. But I just didn't feel like I was able to give the type of care that I really know that I was capable of giving. And so then I was talked into doing a residency program down in Greenwich where I got some training, and I decided to move forward with the certification through the Institute of Physical Art, which is a manual therapy-based paradigm. And it really just kind of gives you a framework on how to treat anybody. So, somebody may come in and say, do you treat migraines? And I always can say yes now. I always can break down the layers, so to speak, when somebody comes in and maybe they have lower back pain, maybe they have knee pain, but I understand now that the hip drives the knee, the foot drives the knee, but even if it's not a hip or a foot problem, it could be the way they move. So we have a very specific way we look at the body, but we also realize you can't shove a square peg into a round hole when some people just don't fit the mold, and you have to look at everything that's going on with that person's case. And the truth is, you have so much potential to treat when you have 60-minute sessions. And so that's one of the things that I've brought here to Peak, being able to treat people for 60 minutes at a time. And usually we're in the private treatment room, but sometimes we'll come over here into the gym space and we'll watch them move, we'll watch them run, we'll watch them get, up and down as if they were getting in and out of a chair and that sort of thing.
And I feel like I've heard so many patients before coming to Peak talk about how they don't get enough time with a physical therapist.
Right.
It's more like maybe 20 to 30 minutes and just some basic exercises, and here you go. Like, you're kind of off on your own. So like, since I've been working here, I've been hearing a lot of patients like appreciate the time that you spend with them, and just being able to like really treat everything, like you were saying, like as a whole, versus, your knee, here's these 3 exercises. Like, it goes so much more beyond that. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And in terms of working with Mia, one of the things that's been so awesome is that, there's 3 types of people, if you want to just try to break it down. There's somebody who is kind of done with PT and they still want someone to help them get to the next step. Okay. Then there's the second type of person, and they're the person who they're currently in PT, but they still want more in terms of a therapeutic exercise or a strength training, core activation type of program. And that's where Mia and I can kind of keep that conversation going. What are you doing with them currently? What do you not want me to do? And that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then the third person, which is always awesome, is somebody that Mia, with her marketing, brings in that didn't even know about Peak. They never saw me, they never needed me, and they're coming straight on from the street, so to speak, and they're going to start working with Mia. So, it's just a really awesome teamwork that we've been able to create in just such a short period of time. So I'm grateful to have somebody who is a nice compliment, I feel. From a lot of perspectives, we kind of work well together, but we're not the same person. And I think that's helpful too. No,
absolutely. When you found, like, how did you find this space? And I know it probably took some time, like looking around locally, how'd you decide on Madison versus a different town? And what do you think? Yeah.
So, it started a couple years back, kind of a bad story in some ways, but the landlord where I first, after I got my certification and I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go try it out and see what it's like to start my own practice. I said, let's find a place, a commercial space, if you will. And so I was renting a space at I won't name the location, but it was about 5 minutes from here in Guilford near the Green. And it was a cool group of people. It was a holistic center where a lot of people were very like-minded, and we all were looking to help the community without drugs, medication, injections, surgery, basically. We were all looking to help people. The one, I don't know, sore point in the center was the landlord. And he was just such a jerk. He really didn't care about any of us from a nice standpoint. He was just really it just seemed like he had it out for me. And so I was within a very short period of time. I had been there for about a year and a half, and I said, I can't do this for myself anymore. I'm not happy to be here. And so I said, you know what? My options are either find another place to rent or maybe go buy a place. And so I stumbled upon this place here, which is a really cool facility. We're here at Prestige Park in Madison, very close to the Guilford shoreline. So, I mean, honestly, I feel like in some ways this place is just, it's almost like a diamond in the rough. I love Madison and Guilford, but we're in the back of this building where a lot of people don't know too much about us. But the truth is we're minutes from the shore. We have a beautiful location in that we could go to the Guilford Green in 5 minutes. We can get to the Madison Town Center in 5 minutes, and we can get to the actual ocean in 5 minutes. So, within a year or so, I decided to buy the space next to us, and we decided to create this gym space that we're sitting in. Everyone who walks in here is blown away. Wow, that space is beautiful. You guys did such a great job. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome, because I kind of got lucky. I don't know much about design, but I just wanted to create an adult jungle gym, or a place that's a place to work out, that's happy, that's bright, that's invigorating, and yet that it's different. So yeah, maybe you can describe a little bit more about what you like, or what your impression was when you first came here.
Yeah, so I think, we have two entrances. We have a side and a back, and I think I came through, what do you call the side? The gym entrance, or do you call?
Exactly. So I call that the side entrance, and then back. That's the back entrance, but
Gotcha.
It varies depending on which way your head's facing.
Yeah, it's funny. The building's set up in this oblique kind of way, so it's hard to tell which one's the side or the back. But I came in through the gym space, and it just it was this beautiful open space with a lot of nice bright colors, and I just felt like it was very warm and inviting, and meeting you too, and you sharing all your goals for your practice, and I feel like it was very similar to what my goals are for my career and my practice. And so, after speaking with you and looking at everything you offer here, I'm like, this is the coolest space. Even though, it's not a YMCA or things like that where you have tons of machines, but you really don't need that.
Right.
I feel like as long as you have, the bands and some basic weights and some kettlebells, and you have one squat rack, and you have a bunch of plates and a rock wall and rings. So you set it up where there's plenty of space to move around. We can host anywhere between 1 to 12 people here, very comfortably, and for a variety of different classes, and they can get a really sweaty workout in for sure. I think it's plenty, and we're growing. We're getting new equipment every month. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like a kid in a candy shop, because everybody loves more equipment, but if you go to a lot of these gyms, what people call the boutique gym, you'll often see just clutter, and you see too much stuff, and people get enamored by the ab roller, or all these different machines. But 2020, putting aside coronavirus and all these other challenges that 2020 is bringing us, we're also kind of learning different and better ways to work out. And we've gotten past the point that it's all about the abs, and we're learning that there's different ways to train the body in a much more safe environment, and frankly, more fun. And one of the themes that we do have here that I think is important to point out is I'm all about pulling. I think a lot of people, in the workout world, you might sort of think this is funny. Every Monday is chest day, right? And why is that? Chest day, for people who love the gym, it's all about pushing, and I buy that. I do like to bench press. I do like to do push-ups, but the truth is our world is down here, and we need to be more here. So, you start the day, whether it's texting or reading your Kindle, reading the newspaper, eating your cereal, it's everything, laptops, computers, our body is becoming here.
Oh, the cell phone, like constantly scrolling through Instagram.
Right.
You know, if you're not going outside because it's a rainy day, like, yeah, like you were saying, everyone's kind of like rounding out their shoulders and just stuck. Like in
so
that constantly.
I put a lot of things in here that are not driven towards pec and front, but rather pulling. And so we've got abilities to do pull-ups, climbing, hanging, a lot of different types of things to help reverse the ratio, if you will. Most people do chest to back, probably 2-to-1 ratio in their workout world. And what we're trying to sort of reverse is get more people to build their back strength and try to reduce the constant focus on chest, because ultimately for the health of your shoulders, for the health of your lungs, and for the health of your overall, even just mindset, if we're bringing here, you feel more confident, you look more confident, as opposed to people who are very down here. It's not really great for us. Well,
and yeah, to go off of that too, like a lot of like clients that I've been seeing too, coming from like some of those shoulder injuries, they always talk about, how that like push up hurts and how that bench press hurts. But some of the other stuff that you're just describing, like row kind of felt fun.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
For sure.
So talk to me, you had mentioned earlier a little bit about some of your career goals. Like what are some of your, your dreams, your goals, short-term or long-term goals? Like what do you see yourself doing? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I just have a lot of interest in physical activity. That's why I was a PE teacher from the start. And, just from a young age, I was always moving, whether it was like running around a track or whether it was playing volleyball in the summertime with some friends. But yeah, as I, go through different types of classes or just explore different areas, I'm kind of learning out more of my interests. And so one of them for sure is yoga. I'm kind of self-teaching. Like right now, I'm doing like a lot of YouTube videos. I really like, power flows, also some gentle stretching too, especially like after like a long run where I'm kind of sore, just to kind of keep everything moving and instead of being stick and kind of stuck like you were talking about, kind of hunched over on the couch.
Right.
So I just like to keep moving and explore, but yoga for sure, especially like arm balances and things like that. But besides like the actual like movement piece and looking into like other types of like credentials, like I know there's the CSCS, which is like one of the gold standards for personal training. And I have one of them as well, like the ACSM, but specifically for like the strength and conditioning piece, when I'm working with all of my runners and like we're teaching group strength and conditioning classes, especially like this summer, we're going to have a running camp. We're going to host a lot of different athletes to get them ready for their cross-country season. So I'm thinking, I think that CSCS would be like a really good credential to have. But how about you? Like any thoughts as to extra credentials? I know there's a lot that physical therapy also offers too.
Yeah. So I'd say the biggest one right now is something called the Postural Restoration Institute. They lead a lot of different continuing education classes, and I'm considering going down that road for a certification. And the truth is, it's a major paradigm shift from what I have been studying over the past, it's been now probably 8 years or so that we've been doing the IPA. And I will always use that as foundational treatment paradigm, I guess you could say, or methodology. But the Postural Restoration Institute is just, it's kind of mind blowing. They'll basically give you various exercises that are very different. We're talking like go onto your hands and knees next to a wall and then bringing your leg out to the side and then trying to shift your spine, rotate here. It's a very specific approach. And their whole thought process is that you can, our body is a little bit asymmetrical, basically. So if I look at you, I see, head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and a torso. But if we take an X-ray, we realize it's actually not symmetrical, right? We've got this major liver that sits here. We've got the heart that's slightly offset to the left. So you've got these 2 lungs, but if you look at the lungs, they're not symmetrical because one of the lungs is kind of shifted upwards because of the size of the liver. So you've got multiple diaphragms in the body other than the major diaphragm, which is our functional muscle for breathing. And so because of this sort of asymmetrical pull that we have, a lot of our bodies are also asymmetrical. Even when you look at the spine and it looks symmetrical. So the whole point is...
and then add injury to that too.
Well, right. And then
compensation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go off of that in just a second. So yeah, like I've been to a couple of their courses and it was awesome. I was like, man, I need more of this. And so I just think as a PT, the longer you're in this business, you can either kind of stick to what you know, or you can kind of try to go out and branch off into different directions. I love dry needling, and I do want to continue to further my abilities with that. I needle probably anywhere on a normal work week, 2 to 3 people a day. And sometimes needling only takes a couple minutes. It's not the whole session by any means, but I think dry needling is huge, and I love that Connecticut allows us to do it, and I think that it's a great part to my tool chest. But I want more tools, and we use some other stuff. I want to pursue Graston technique, which is another thing that I think with some of my runners could really benefit from. But not for nothing, it's pretty painful from what I've heard. So
is that breaking up scar tissue, or
yeah, a lot of times you'll use it. It's like a metal kind of a bar tool that you'll really kind of scrape along some of the muscle tissue. You can use it on the plantar fascia.
On scars and stuff too.
Yeah. You're going to want to book people like at 6 a.m. when no one else can hear them screaming, basically, because that's one of those things. But speaking of injuries, so you had an injury. So I've actually had a couple more like minor lame ones kind of. But
you had back surgery.
That's true too. But you had the ACL. So talk to me about how that sort of impacted your life as an athlete and how you kind of approach patients and clients.
Yeah. So when I was teaching high school PE, I was officiating a game, and I was like sprinting down the sideline. One of my students by accident just like stepped in front of me, and I tried to avoid hitting him by quickly like juking off to the side, like cutting step, and I heard a pop. And I was like, I know that there's something going on here. This is before I kind of knew more about like, physical therapy and like the injury side of things. So like, I was like, is this my meniscus? Like, what's going on here? So yeah, I fell to the ground. I was like, okay, this is serious. I felt like kind of like my kneecap shift and kind of come back into place a little bit. And then I stood up and I had like a little stutter step, and I was like, all right, I need to go to the school nurse. But I finished teaching that block, and through the help of the school nurse, my athletic trainer that was at the school there, and then just getting an MRI down the road, like a few weeks later, going to orthopedic, found out I tore my ACL completely. And, someone who's super athletic, I was like, I need to get the surgery. I know some people opt not to, and kind of just strengthen like the muscles around, like the hamstrings specifically, and the glutes. But I was like, if I'm going to be using or moving around for my entire career, I'm going to need to definitely repair this. And so got that done. And for those of you who do not know much about the ACL recovery period, it's between like 9 to 12 months to get back to activity. So
unless you're Adrian Peterson. Apparently.
Oh, and then that's what, 6 months or something?
He was like back on the football field in 6 or 7 months.
And got like a record.
Like 2,000 plus yards. That was not, most people aren't AP though.
I tried. I know. I thought about him when I was going through it, and I was like, it's still not enough motivation for me. But so around like 9 months, I felt like, okay, I'm like back to like 5Ks and things like that. But those next 3 months, I really had to, just hone in on everything that like I needed to focus on, like balancing, strengthening the hamstrings to prevent like other revisions. And it took a toll, like not only physically, but just like mentally too. Like I felt like I was not moving as much, which was kind of tough because that's like my stress relief, type of, coping strategy. It was my social piece of my life too. Like, that's how I met my husband, through activity. Like I met so many friends, like, I love beach volleyball, like I said before. And so that was just really challenging. I feel like that was probably the biggest challenge, because I felt like, okay, like 9 to 12 months, like physically that's okay. Like, like my leg looks so much, thinner than my other leg, but I know it's going to get back to that point. But yeah, mentally that was tough. So then I decided, like, what can I do to kind of just feel better? And I just got into meditation. I really like the app Headspace.
Yep.
I like, the whole calm, soothing, different techniques, ways to not like just get rid of like negative thoughts, but ways to accept them and like let them pass like in this very peaceful way. And there's a whole like process that how you can do that. And like, I felt so much better after the first 3 weeks, right? Like the 21 days to build a habit, just doing that practice all the time really helped me just kind of get over some of that like mental trauma that I was experiencing. But I try to, like, when I have clients that we work with who express, being stressed after like a surgery or like, just kind of getting down on themselves, and maybe the physical piece feels like it's getting better, but they just kind of feel like a little anxiety going on. I always recommend Headspace, and I share some strategies with them that's really helped them. In addition, just to, helping them with the physical piece too. But yeah, that's just something I always strive for. Not only like, just like what we were talking about before, like a holistic approach, mind to body connection is huge.
Right.
For sure.
Right. Yeah, I've actually had a lot of people who kind of commented, yeah, Mia's got such a nice way about her, or she's got a good upbeat way. And I think you don't have an annoying, bubbly way, which is where people sometimes are a little too much. Like, I'll never forget a friend of mine who used to work with, and she was like, God, are you ever not happy?
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, it's okay to be not happy, or it's okay if you're often happy, but it's nice to have like a kind of a smooth way of being pleasant, as opposed to being kind of in your face, like a little bit obnoxious when somebody's really not thrilled to be here that day or whatever, and you kind of just make it more enjoyable to be around.
Oh, good. So, likewise, Brian. Yeah. But yeah, you had a pretty major back surgery though, too.
So 15 years ago, approximately, I had a microdiscectomy, and it was kind of the culmination of a tennis career, and then laying a deck, and then also kind of the type of work that I was doing at the time. It just kind of all came to a head, and it was a tough time. The recovery was certainly much easier. I'd say 3 weeks I took off from work, and then I was sort of the next 6 weeks or so I was back to work on a more of a light duty sense. But I was able to do a little bit more each week, being careful, being smart. And then I did several months of PT, but more just because I was a PT, and it was like, I know how important this is. And then essentially I'd say 6 months or so I was back to doing just about everything I wanted to do. I was definitely back to running and exercise. I think I was playing tennis by then, but it took some time to really get that mental confidence back. When you hit a tennis ball, especially if I've been doing it for, at that time, close to 20 years, to hit it is one thing, but to play tennis and really play the way you can was a completely different beast. And I ended up actually getting back to playing tons and tons of tournaments and all sorts of stuff quite aggressively. A few years back, before I then went on to do some triathlon training, and that's when I got into more triathlons and distance training and things like that.
And to go off of that too, Brian's an Ironman.
Yeah. So that happened.
Yeah, that's intense.
Excuse me. It feels like eons ago. It was I did my Ironman in Mont-Tremblant, Montreal, and it happened like it was about 10 days before my daughter's due date, which was my first of 2 children, and everyone was like, "So are you going to do it? Are you going to do it?" Because when you sign up for those things, my wife wasn't pregnant yet, and I was officially signed up, and I was mentally in, I'm going to do this. So then it became clear, like, all right, so her due date is within 2 weeks of when the baby's supposed to come, and I was like, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to train. I'm going to train. And then when we get closer and closer, your wife goes to the doctor every week by that time. And I kept saying, just please ask them, like, what do you think? And they just kept saying, I'll see you in a week. And And so I left, and I had my phone on me there during the whole race. I kind of flew home the very next morning. It was kind of one of those things where I would have loved to have spent a few extra days there, but you do what you got to do. Everything went great. I had a good race. I was really pleased. I could talk about some of the negatives, but I had a good race.
You must have been stressed about two pieces though, your family and then also the event itself.
Yeah, it was tough. The nice thing is my wife didn't hold it against me in one even ounce. So she was really, really supportive the whole time. And ultimately she was sad not to be there. But of course she wasn't allowed to leave the country for that 7-8 hours away. So yeah, that was tough. And then not having her there. I mean, that was, before my kids were born, that was top 3 or 4 moments of my life. Graduation was huge. PT school wasn't easy for me. I got through it. We managed. Everything was good. Tennis career at college was really solid. But this was big. This was something that, to me, when you don't know if you can do it until you finish it, that's a feeling that I wish everyone could experience. Not necessarily that, but I think biting off something that you don't know that you can swallow is healthy. You have to be able to train to learn how to do something like that. And I think that's what grows us as people. You can't just, signing up for a 5K is great if that's your goal, or if you don't think you could ever do more than that, that's totally fine. But I think sometimes it's healthy to push ourselves. And, I know a lot of people think Ironmen are crazy, including myself.
Tell people what it is. The distance.
It's so we're 2.4 miles swim, and then you hop on a bike and you go 112 miles on a bike, and then you finish that up with 26.2 mile run. So
it's intense.
It took me a little over 12 hours, and I was on pace for sub 12, and then some stomach things happened. So we'll take part 2 whenever that day comes. I am doing another one, but I haven't signed up for it yet. So I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. So as you know, little Mila and Brooks, it's tough, and you're really, your spouse makes a huge sacrifice, as do you and your kids. So it's one of those things where, I'm waiting for the right time to sign up to do something like that again.
Yeah. I ran a marathon before, and I remember spending all Sunday just planting Gatorades and goo packets in certain areas if I didn't have pockets in my pants I was wearing that day. And then after you run 17 miles for the training, then you have to go drive and pick all the stuff back up. And then you have to oh wait, we passed that tree. We have to go back and pick it up. So it's a huge commitment.
Process. Oh yeah.
And I remember just starting sometimes when it's just getting light out, and then finishing when the sun was going back down. So it's a huge commitment, like you said, for families.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you know what? It's a great commitment. I absolutely think it's awesome. But you take, at least I did about a 6-month training. You're sacrificing a good 3 months for sure, where basically every weekend, from my perspective, or in your case, every Sunday, is basically spoken for, because you come back from maybe a 7 or 8 hour training ride, and you don't necessarily have very much energy. You try to rally for the kids, or try to rally for your wife. Let's go for a quick hike up Sleeping Giant, but you're ultimately dying every step of the way.
Yeah.
And that was when I was, early 30s. Now your energy load changes as you get older, apparently.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
but from that Ironman, you probably got so many triathletes also, who were wow, he's a PT, he understands us, he does triathlons himself. Did it grow after completing your triathlete population here, and grow after that?
Yeah, I think going off of that, people hate when a doctor or a PT, chiropractor, anybody tells them, oh, well, it hurts when you run, just stop running. And so with that being said, people enjoy knowing that I get it.
Yeah.
I've done 2 70.3s. I've done a full Ironman. I've done several smaller triathlons. Tennis players also, they enjoy the fact that I can not just treat them on the table, but then I'll have them bring in their racket, their shoes, and I can try to watch them. We'll go out into the parking lot, or maybe I'll go out to their tennis court lesson, and I'll watch them move. I just want to be the therapist who takes it to the next level. So, I like looking at someone on their bike.
Yeah.
treating someone on the table alone, you're doing them a disservice, because the reality is, if it hurts them when they're on the bike, has anyone looked at you while you're on the bike? Well, maybe sometimes you got a bike fit, like that's integral for these types of people, but sometimes they still don't understand that, well, if your ankle doesn't really dorsiflex or bend that well from a chronically sprained ankle or a broken ankle from 12 years ago, they're not going to think about that. I do. And so I think that type of stuff matters. And I think the same goes from your perspective. Like, people like to work with you because A, you're an athlete. B, you look the part, and then you're easy to be around. And you obviously, know what you're doing. So all of those things go together. I know Mia sometimes goes running with her clients. I mean, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people tell me they enjoy that. And you're not going to find that with a lot of trainers.
It's true. Yeah.
Isn't there that guy, Al or Hal? What's his, Hank? There's a guy down the road.
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Yeah, that's true.
Never met him. I'm sure he's awesome, but yeah, no, I'll be running. I won't be on my bike. I won't be in a car. Besides, I'll be running with you if you're running. If you are doing a bike, though, I will be on the bike. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'll be with you running and moving around for sure. Yeah.
I think it's important that people are seeing you as a person, not just your coach or your trainer or your therapist. They actually see a little bit about you that makes it more personal. Speaking of personal, that was a cheesy segue. So, like, what do you like to do on your own when you're not here? And,
Yeah. Honestly, like the past couple of years since that ACL surgery, so I got my surgery in 2017, but all my hobbies have to do with movement. Okay. And so I've been learning a lot of just yoga sequences, arm balance techniques, and spending a lot of time with that. But yeah, I have a dog, I have a husband, we go hiking together. I would say maybe the reason why after surgery was so tough for me is because all my hobbies do revolve around activity. I tried to learn how to knit, didn't go so well.
That's awesome.
I don't have the best fine motor skills. Like, I play telestrations with my family, which is like that telephone game. You have to write, the clue, and then you have to draw it, and then you have to guess someone else's clue, and like no one could ever guess mine because my pictures were so awful. So yeah, for me, all my time and passion is just around activities. So yeah, a lot of my hobbies have to do with learning a new skill. Yeah. And I really enjoy learning new things. If someone was like, "Hey, can I show you how to, kick flip on a skateboard?" I might be a little terrified at first, but I would say yes, never give it a shot. Yeah. So like, awesome. I'm kind of open to that kind of stuff. But I know for you have your family, and tell me a little bit about your hobbies too.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually very similar. Other than me being like a diehard Washington Capitals hockey fan, right now we're like struggling because there's no hockey, there's no sports or anything. But yeah, I mean, we love being outside, and we love to just like basically just mirroring what you guys are doing. Our dog, he's an outdoorsy kind of guy. So between the dog, my kids, my wife, we love to do some hikes. We've done lots of good traveling where a lot of our trips revolve around either photography or photography at these national parks and things like that.
I saw the pictures in the background. Yeah, all the photos are, I think, of your art.
A lot of, So speaking of which, you and Steve are going to have to go to New Zealand sometime and we might have to do a separate podcast just on New Zealand. It's basically the outdoor adventure capital of the world.
Sweet. That sounds good.
There's so much fun stuff to do there, and it's just one of the most beautiful, pure, clean places in the world. So
we'll wait until COVID-19 kind of dwindles down a little bit. No, totally.
That was a few years ago. That was one of our last, well, I shouldn't say that. That was one of our first big trips after we got married.
Oh, nice. Like a honeymoon?
One of our last trips before the kids came along. Yeah. Cool. Nice. So, what else do you want to talk about? Yeah.
Any future projects that you have in mind too for Peak, and where you see the business going?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the things you sort of hinted at earlier, we're planning on a big running camp this summer, and so we'll have to see how this whole COVID impacts that. It was going to be probably July, so I think everything's going to be cleaned up by then. Gosh, I hope.
Yeah.
But so what we're looking at for that, we're just trying to create something where a running camp that's close to home. So a ton of our runners that come here, high school and middle school runners are going up to Vermont, which is phenomenal. I've heard great things about those camps, but this one will be similar, except it's close to home. And ultimately, what we're trying to achieve is it's not so much the running piece, it's everything else that's so complementary to that. So I think,
I was gonna say, runners are so used to running, and that's it, right? Like they don't, unless you have a really awesome strength and conditioning coach. You don't do a lot of like glute and hamstring work, which is so key to like just their general running health. So like what we did actually in December, we had like a little trial camp during their December break, where we did a lot of strength and conditioning work using bands, strengthening like those two muscle groups I was just talking about, the hamstrings, the glutes, like the posterior chain, which is so key to just running health. So we're going to mainly focus on that, but also get some guest speakers, like get a dietitian to come in and talk about like what you should be eating before, during, after a run, depending on distances and your goals. We talked about goal setting, keeping a journal, things like that, just to keep track of what you're doing. Everything has a purpose.
Right.
So we want them to understand, this is why you're working your glutes and your hamstrings. This is why you're tracking your fitness. This is why this guest speaker's coming in. So our goal is to just try to promote that health within the community.
Right. And I think it's also important to kind of echo that, but also point out it's not just about nutrition before, during, and after the race. It's like your general nutrition. Because what do runners all have in common? They're burning a lot of calories. And so especially these kids that are, 14, 15 years old, they, sometimes they're skinny because they run a lot, and sometimes it's because they don't have good nutrition. And I think that's why that type of thing is so important to me. So I'm obviously all about injury prevention and proactive approach to this. So my goal is to reach these kids from a standpoint of injury prevention, trying to keep them healthy, because so many of runners, 90% of runners get injured, but how many of these runners are missing some or all of their season because of a stress fracture or because of poor training, essentially, in my opinion. And so trying to teach them all of these other points about it. I've talked to Quinnipiac. I'd love to get their coach to come in. I'd love to get a current or past runner to come in who's been in the college process. I'd love to have people talk about the recruiting process. And there's just so many levels to it all. We get some really solid runners that come in here, and I just want to kind of prep them for what's to come, and also try to give them the best longevity for their running career as possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And other future projects. I know that we talked about different types of sports specific camps.
Yep. Soccer players, football players, softball players, the list goes on, but I think just trying to change the mindset. The phrase is physical literacy. So some of that goes to younger people, like in their, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, but it's really just trying to get through to parents and coaches and hopefully the athletes themselves that spending 1 hour once or twice a week with Mia doesn't take away from their ability to throw a better fastball. When the reality is, it actually is adding to it, because so much of the mindset is that you're going to lose an hour of training.
It's true.
When ultimately what we're trying to get, the point we're trying to drive home is that, no, we're trying to improve the strength of your core and your rotator cuff and the range of motion in your elbow, so that you don't end up needing Tommy John surgery when you're in 11th or 12th grade. Right.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people treat training, it's just going to the gym.
Right.
I think it's important for people to know, I want you to treat it as important as going to the dentist, as important as going to the doctor. This is your health. This is, to me, as important as anything else. Like, you really need to make it a priority.
Yeah. And
that can prevent you from going to the doctor sometimes too, if you're taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So coming off of that, where do you think, where is this podcast going? What do you think? What do you want to do moving forward with this?
Yeah. Couple thoughts. So we definitely want to just immerse ourselves more into the community. And so I'm thinking we can interview some guests, whether that's a dietitian, maybe a running coach, because I know that that's one of our big focuses here is that endurance population. maybe some of our clientele, like our clients, our patients, to see their success story, hear their success stories, and kind of share that with the community too. But yeah, no, I think we can do a lot with it. I'm really looking forward to like diving into specific topics and just not only talk about that, but also like learn more about that too.
Right. Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we've got some good ideas, and I think that'll be awesome to see what we have in store for the future here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. And we will catch up with you soon. So stay well.
Yeah, stay tuned. Yeah.